how about this? Let's get to this. My main question is, why do people feel, because it's been a repressive government for like 70 years now. So why do people now feel emboldened to protest? Because I lived in China for 12 years, and people, American people would say like, why don't you just protest the government in China? It's like, because they'll kill everyone. I mean, what part of like a ruthless dictatorship don't you understand? You know, so it's really ballsy from where I see it to even come out and do the protests they did on July 11th.
Massive.
Why do people feel okay to do it now? And not okay is a relative word, but why are they emboldened to do it now where they weren't before?
I think there's a lot of things happening. A part of it is the fact that there is money for the people and they're not getting it. You know, Cuba has the COVID situation in Cuba is out of control. They have last week, one day they had 3,500 new cases. And again, we're talking a country of 11 million people. That is a massive number of people getting COVID. The Delta variant has made its way there. They helped produce one of the vaccines for, I believe it's the Iranian or the Chinese vaccine. I'm not 100% sure of that. But they're shipping that back out. So they've essentially been, they're not giving it to their own people.
And they're not buying vaccines, right, from other, like they won't buy from Pfizer or something.
And they won't buy. They've also denied aid from other countries, not just America, countries that they have trade agreements with. They've denied aid to keep up the facade. I'm assuming that everything is fine and we're doing great here. It's another situation a lot like Venezuela, which is like the people are at a point now where, and a lot of the things that I've heard from videos and my cousins tell me is that if we're going to die being quiet, we might as well die being loud, which is we're dying at a rapid rate here. We're not getting the help we need. We don't have food. There's, you know, like you do get rations and people are like, but they get fed. For a family of 7, my aunt was given a thigh of chicken. That was her ration for the week. So she got to go to the store and pick up her rations. She was given a thigh. And I mean, yeah, sure. Each person could eat a little bit of food and then you can make soup out of that. The bones, I'm assuming. Like there's not, and I'm not making this up. I mean, there's going to be people that are upset that I'm saying these things. The last time I did a podcast like this, I got death threats from people because people said like, especially if you're African-American, you have been fed this belief that Cuba will take care of you.
Yeah.
And all I can say, and I think that's why there was so much anger towards, or at least disbelief towards the Black Lives Matter movement post that they put up on Instagram, because it talked about like what America has done wrong. Cuba has helped out African-Americans and people in the Black diaspora. And, you know, if the embargo ended, this would be over. One, it wouldn't. It would absolutely help. If we ended the embargo tomorrow, things would be better. Would they be good? No. And this idea that it helped African-Americans, did Fidel send people to Angola? Yeah, all these things are true, but he did those things. It's my belief that he did a lot of these things to piss off America because he'd been in an ongoing war. America tried to kill him 3 times. Like it was an ongoing war of pissing off America. He stayed in Harlem because it was sending a message to the United Nations when African-Americans didn't have rights here. And all this talk that it's good for black people. Look at the protests. There are black people protesting in Cuba.
Mostly black people.
Afro-Cuban,
I'm part black.
Right? Yeah.
Say that again?
There's a lot of Afro-Cubans population
Tons.
protesting, yeah.
Half my family is black, is Afro-Cuban. I'm part black. My grandmother's black. It's not something that I sit here and promote 24/7. I also don't put myself out there like, hey, yo, I'm black. Let me say that. Nah, like I'm going to give respect to somebody who's had to go through more because clearly I'm white passing. Everyone thinks I'm everything from, I get called Habibi when I walk in a bodega. Greek people think I'm Greek. Like I get everything. So
I didn't even know that word meant.
That'd be good as an actor. You could play a lot of parts.
I've gotten callbacks for like, you know, terrorist number 3. And I'm like, this is too much. I'm not doing this. But there's plenty of times where I get that I don't have to deal with the same things as somebody who's grown up very visibly black would have to. But in talking to my family, this is my family. This is my blood. These are people that look like me, just have darker skin. And I know this is my family that I've been able to break bread with them in the past when they've gotten the chance to come to America for a week or two. And it's killing me that people are saying like black people have it good in Cuba. It's like, nah, like ask black Cubans. And if we do care, like we should care about the whole diaspora. You know what I mean? And you have people that are saying like the people on the far right saying like, this is proof that socialism doesn't work. No, it's not. Because then why aren't they protesting in Denmark? Why aren't they protesting in England for certain
that
things?
A ruthless dictatorship doesn't work.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that at the end of the day
Never
is
works,
what
yeah.
all these people want is freedom, the freedom to express themselves. and the reason why, to answer your question, I've gone a long way, but to answer your question, the way the culture's been in Cuba is you get more for snitching. So you get better, more rations. You know, if you're doing something wrong, you don't get in as much trouble. The police look out for you. If you're someone who's out here pointing out dissidents. And that's kind of what's always happened is like, you know, there's stories of friends of mine that went to Cuba and asked, you know, you get the same taxi driver all the time if you want. You could pay him to be like, you're my guy for the week. And it's not that much money. They make like $20 a month. So if you give the guy $50, he'll literally be at your beck and call as your private driver the whole week. And after a while, they befriend the guy and they say, hey, tell me what's really happening. They'll pull out to like El Campo, like the woods or something, and they'll walk 20 minutes into the woods to have that conversation because there's so much fear that if someone even sees you with an inflection of you saying how bad it is and how rough it is, you're going to get snitched out. Yep. So that fostering that type of mentality and that type of culture for years and for decades, for over 50 years at this point, you've kind of ingrained that in the culture, and somehow that powder keg exploded. And I think it comes with the fact that the COVID situation hasn't gotten any better. People are super frustrated at being locked in homes. They're locked in homes. And I was locked in my house. I learned how to make Manhattans. I learned how to, bake bread. They got none of that. They got nothing.
No Manhattans.
And there's something, there's got to be
bread
something
isn't that great when you're poor. It's not
Say that again?
exciting. Baking bread is not that exciting when you're poor.
No, especially if you ain't got shit to make bread with.
Yeah.
You know?
Sourdough.
Dude, there's a way that you could get Miami TV stations in Cuba sometimes. So if your antenna is right, like the way I would get porn when I was a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so it's a little squiggly. And I was talking to my cousin and the son said, I want to go to America. He looked at me, this kid's 11 years old, and he said, you're so lucky you were born there. And that, like, just a gut punch. A child looking you in the face who you know is hungry. And I was just like, how much more money can I send these people? I feel so bad. And I said, what did you think of American TV? Because he said, hey, I could see it sometimes. And he goes, there's so many cheeseburgers. And I think it's because of all the fast food commercials.
Yeah.
But like, imagine being a child, you're going to want what you hear is capitalism because you're like, dude, I get to have cheeseburgers for 99 cents. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
It's got to be insane.
And how does because I know how it works in China, so I just want to see if it's similar, is the way that people get control. I've seen a lot of people saying online recently, like, oh, but there was 1 million people marching in support of the government.
Pro-government.
After the protests happened, and then people were marching in support of the government, and you can't just make people do that. I heard someone say that, and I'm like, well, yes, you can. And the way they do it in China is there's the party, there's the Communist Party. And if you're like really good in your high school, you get to be a member of the Communist Party, which then signs you up for the rest of your life to be someone who rats people out in the neighborhood for advancement in your career or whatever it might be. But they tend to have one person in every block of houses or at least a few in every block of houses. Do you know how it works?
It's very similar. It's very similar. Remember Elian Gonzalez, the kid who came to America? His mother died on the way here. And then they were sent back. The kid was sent back to Cuba. There's the video of like him the picture of him being held in the closet.
Bill Clinton, I believe. Right,
yeah, they weren't sure if he should stay in the U.S. or be sent back to Cuba.
Right. And then Bill Clinton allowed that child to be sent back to Cuba.
Which cost Al Gore, Florida. And
further cemented Cubans hating Democrats. Yeah. That child was essentially sent home and indoctrinated into the communist. Not indoctrinated. He was sort of like, he became a mascot for the communist government. Yeah. So he was well taken care of. Anything he wanted. He was very politicized. He was in the front row, and you could see him behind Fidel in a lot of speeches. And he would be taking pictures. He would dress a lot like Fidel, like in the army clothing or military clothing. And it sort of became like a bit of a mascot, like I said. That's kind of not too dissimilar to what happens if you're in a country of people that doesn't have a lot, and you get a little bit for doing these certain things. You're going to keep doing it, even if it's just to look out for your family. And that's very similar to what happens to a lot of people. If you're really good and you show any type of, desire, and maybe just you're adept at being politically, savvy or something, you're going to be pushed into the communist government. And then all of a sudden your family starts to get a little bit more food and they get well looked after. Sure. They get to go to the nice hospitals. It's like you're going to do that.
Well, it's career advancement.
I mean, Yeah, I would be I'm a great gossip. I'm very observant. I can always tell when people are up to no good. So I could relate. I would do this.
Kaplan would thrive under this society.
Yeah.
You would not have made it in North New Jersey.
You would have died very, very young in Newark, and it would have looked like an accident.